Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the W.A.I.T channel, What Am I Thinking? Today we're going to talk about the January 6th Commission hearings that have currently been taking place in Washington. I know for myself that these hearings are historic and they are necessary because it is very important to have on the record what actually occurred that day, regardless of who feels that it's insignificant, it's in the past. We know that history is important, and sometimes we don't get it right in the present, but down the line, this is important for our country, and to learn how close we actually did come to our democracy being thwarted. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Tracy, what are you thinking? Because I know for myself, that day, it's still quite painful for me to even think that there are people, and I'm not going to even name a specific party, but that there are people who honestly are still saying it was just a gathering. They're making a big deal out of this. Nothing really bad happened. It was just like tourists. I am so appalled that even to this day, after they have shown film footage after film footage, people losing appendages, a person died, and they still won't face the truth and say what happened on that day.
Yeah, and it's sad, as historic as the hearings are, it's sad that we even are in a place where we have to do it. I don't check the box of liberal and I don't check the box of conservative. I would say I am a libservative. That is what I am. In reality, a moderate. Yeah. But on that day, after the events, 90% of the people who are our representatives spoke in unison and were of the same mind about what took place and what happened. And it's sad to me that probably less than 24 hours after that,
or a visit to Mar-a-Lago,
a not so fun trek through the airport, will change that mindset.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to change your politics. We're not asking you to change your vote on anything. We're asking you to go back to that point of time and be honest about what you experienced and what you know to be true, not the history you want to rewrite and the falsehoods that you want to spread. So that's what made me sad, is that unity didn't last very long, and that's why we're here.
You know, there was this historian, I want to say that he was on Morning Joe, and we know we've been looking at what happened during the Nixon era and looking at the Trump era. And the one thing that he said is different between the two. The acts were equally egregious, but the one thing that was different was Fox News. And he stated that had it not been for that platform, many of the things that occurred leading up to Trump being elected and during his term would never have, well, it would have, Nixon would still be president, basically, had he had
a vehicle like that.
absolutely.
Yeah, because if you think about it, we had the big three, and that was a time where news truly was nonpartisan.
Right.
It just told what was going on. And man, would I love to get back to a nonpartisan space. And it's one of those things that even for those who want to say that some of the other channels, CNN started out that way, and I would like to say they still are. Part of what I believe is that most of them still are, but others don't see it that way when their party is in office.
But I think when I think back to, like you said, the big three, ABC, CBS, and NBC, they were called news readers. They didn't give commentaries.
That is very true. They didn't share their opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get back to, because
we ain't going back.
Well, no, we're not.
Because we're in a personality space, and
Right.
they are more TV personalities than newscasters, really, a lot of them, and or news reporters. Sad to say. But yeah, so it's I don't think we're going to put that genie back in the bottle. But yeah, that would be interesting if they were just reporting on it and taking their opinion. Wow, what would that look like? Let me think. Does NPR maybe, does it still exist a little bit? Maybe.
I'm not so sure.
Would you have any viewers for that type?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
That would be interesting.
I mean,
That would be
because
interesting.
everything has kind of been sensationalized,
Right.
you know, and that was, you think of the shock jocks and your Rush Limbaughs, people listen to them
for their opinions,
right.
to see what's their take on
The
this,
venom.
that, or the other.
They wanted
yeah.
that.
That's true.
And you do have that segment of the population, that's their air.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I do remember somebody trying to create this new news channel that was supposed to be something like that. I don't know. The fact that I can't tell you what it was would tell me that maybe it wasn't that successful. But oh wow, that would help a lot. But the sad part about it is that other station probably would not change their format. So it would have to be like an across the board thing, and that other station would not, you know, their bread and butter is.
It's so funny though, because I do remember during that time where I would watch certain newscasters, and I literally didn't know, are they Democrat or are they Republican?
That was a big thing that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then it became, I'm trying to think at what point, and some of them still try. I remember Barbara Walters really,
She was big on that.
Yes, I remember that. And
what was the guy, Charlie something? He was on ABC. He was their nighttime anchorman. And I can't remember his last name, but I remember that there was this organization where once a year these big wigs from all around the world they would meet, and he was one of these individuals, and it was then that I learned that he was a Republican.
Okay.
But I just found that all up until that time I did not know.
Right.
He just read the news.
Yeah.
And we need that so badly, because not just in this country is there a division, but we're seeing this systemic problem all around the world.
Yeah.
And I like you said, no, you can't put this genie back in the bottle. But I do wonder if the next generation or the generation that follows, I don't see them falling prey in the same way.
Well, they don't get their news from TV.
Exactly.
They're on the internet.
Right.
Which is
scary.
which is a whole nother danger where we're just worried. We're concerned about opinions on TV. We have flat out lies and untruths
Absolutely.
on the internet.
Absolutely.
And there's no policing of that at this time. So,
where do we go?
Yeah,
I mean, honestly.
not in the right direction, it doesn't seem like. So, and it wouldn't be as bad if people would read and educate themselves. Mm-hmm. When you get information, do your own fact finding and try to find a truth that can be backed up. Just because you hear one person say it doesn't make it.
You know, one of the senators, because I think one day this week they were showing the footage of senators taking them on tours. This was the one where they were showing them going on tours and showing them like
the exits
and things
right.
like that. So they pulled one Republican senator aside and said, well, what did you think about that? And you know, this man, you know, it's like, okay, if you're going to lie, be a real good liar. He's saying he didn't see anything wrong with that, and there's nothing unusual about that. When it gets to that point where you can't even just look at something for what it is mm-hmm. and speak on something for what it is, mm-hmm. that to me is frightening.
Right.
Because this is somebody who is sitting in a high seat mm-hmm. in our government mm-hmm. and is a part of the legislature mm-hmm. for our government.
Yeah.
And he's just outright lying.
So that goes back to our conversation about we would be in a different space when people talk about the messaging for the Republicans and the Democrats. Why the Democrats are so poor at their messaging is because they want to try to tell the truth. Whereas Republicans seem sometimes to be able to be okay with lying. And if we go back to that debate that we talked about between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, where Barack was like, "Oh, so we can just lie?" It's like I didn't know we were lying here, and it's like the person that Mitt Romney is today, I would believe that he would check a different box, because I would say that was probably not one of his proudest moments, that whole process to choose to tell untruths and then still lose the race. I want to say that was a learning thing for him. But that is part of the problem, is that people, they don't care about the truth in the same way that we once did. And that makes me sad, regardless of the party, because like I said, I don't check the box of Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative. I try to, stand from a position of being moderate and leaning towards what makes sense and what's right for most people, and not necessarily everything that lines up with what's good for me, because I'm one person. And so just because this is the way I want it doesn't mean that's the best thing for society. So,
but I think innately mm-hmm. that man always wants to do what is right. I think the average human being does not go through life wanting to do what's wrong and accept what's wrong. And let me just finish this point, okay? Because I really feel that there's going to be a consequence for mm-hmm. the direction that the GOP is going, mm-hmm. for them deciding deny, mm-hmm. that at some point this is not going to serve them anymore. Mm-hmm. And it is because I do believe at the root, man is good. Mm-hmm. At our root, mm-hmm. we are. I think that you can say it's blue when it's really green for so long mm-hmm. until you finally say, no, it's not.
But then remember the saying, money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
So even if that root started out good, money, which is our commodity, which is how we survive and we use it, when it comes into the picture and greed comes into the picture, it pollutes the process.
Okay, there has to be a rainbow from this, though.
So the rainbow
is up in a bow.
The rainbow is that I kind of agree with what you said, that most people do want to do the right thing, because the type of money that's polluting the process is not the type of money that everybody has access to. So the majority of the people hopefully can have a wake-up call and get off the crazy train, and we can turn it around, and we can get rid of those people who are polluting the process and only to serve themselves. You know, and that's the sad part about it, is that you're not supposed to get into politics. Just like when I became a clinician, they say you're not going to get rich in most helping professions.
Right.
And so when you go into politics, it's not about getting rich. It's about serving the greater good. And that's been lost. You know, I almost feel like sometimes that they need to change the requirements to run for public office. And I really feel like sometimes military service should be a part of that. And I don't say that just because I'm a veteran, but when you can serve your country in that way, that says a lot about you. Being able to do it, whether it's that or maybe doing the
something that serves your community.
Yeah, what's the other organization?
Peace Corps.
Peace Corps. You know, something like that, where you have to do 2 to 4 years of that type of something, because that does something to you, and it says something about you as a human being. And you know, being able to get the corruption and the greed out of the process is going to be key. But most change happens when the society coalesces. You know, you got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, and to be able to turn that page. And unfortunately, as our country, we typically come together over tragedy. But it's like, how much more tragedy do we have to suffer? January 6th was a tragic day.
It really was.
That was a tragic day. But our unity on that day didn't last more than 24 hours. And that's what makes me sad. So I'm like, what does that next tragedy have to be before we have the wake-up call?
This country's at a pivotal point in our history. I mean, it really is. We still have not come out of everything that happened with COVID. We have not really come from that. And then we saw two countries go into war. And now
still
we are
at
seeing, right, at war. And it's not just what they fear is going to be a recession just in our country, but a multitude of countries. We're looking at a few years before we really are going to see ourselves coming out of something. So to have that coupled on within that time, we're getting ready to go into people running for offices. So there's a lot that we are going to be struggling with over these next couple of years. And if anything comes out of the January 6th, I would just really love to see, even if it's just a small percentage of those that had the question mark, or they checked a certain box that should not have been checked, that we at least open the eyes of some people so that they can see that we want better for our country than what happened, and that it's time to, if you're being shown the truth, accept it's the truth, and these are the things that actually did happen.
Yeah, you know, don't just because someone tells you something. Being told something doesn't make it true, regardless of the source. Make sure you do your own due diligence to find out what the real truth is in most situations and circumstances. And pay attention who you're voting into office, and know that you can vote others out of office if they are not serving the purpose of the greater good for your community. So thank you all for listening to the W.A.I.T channel. We are not happy that these January 6 hearings have to be held, but we know it is a necessary thing. And if you can't watch it all, at least pay attention to the highlights. All right. See you next time. And remember, we don't mind telling you what we are thinking.